Shall we begin?
All right, begin.
Okay. Just for the files, if you can tell me your full name and when and where you were born.
Hazel Genevieve Shaw, or at least I was before I was married.
Okay, and what's your married name?
McIntosh, M-C-I-N-T-O-S-H.
And when and where were you born?
I was born in Smyrna Mills, state of Maine, USA.
What's your birthday?
I was born in 1896 to December 20.
December 20, 1896.
December 20, 1896.
How did you come to be in Revelstoke?
Well, I decided back east I was going to the state of Maine to go in training for a nurse. But my friend came out here, Beulah Bell, came out to her brother, who got his army discharge in Vancouver from his uncle, Dr. Dudley Bell. He came out here to them, and then she wrote me that and I came back from the States and found my friend Beulah had come out west. I decided to come out west too. That was in 1920. They come out in 1919. I come out in 1920. And then I saw Revelstoke for the first time and stayed one night in the old CPR Hotel on CPR Hill. Then I went down to Beaton. We had to go to Arrowhead by train and then go on the ferry over to Beaton, 10 miles, then up to Trout Lake, another 12 miles, with Jim Porter and his wagon and horses. Then I worked for Mrs Jowett, who had the Jowett Hotel. At that time, Trout Lake was going downhill. It had been an incorporated city, and there had been 5 hotels, but at that time there was only 2 running. There was the Madden house and Mrs Jowett, and she was Mrs Daney's mother. When Jim Porter took me to Trout Lake, Mr. Daney, her son-in-law, used to drive the bus, or the wagon then, to Ferguson with the mail. So that was it. And I went to work for Mrs. Jowett, and once in a while I got in bad with her. If I did, and she'd say, I'd go and apologize, and she'd say, oh, fiddle-dee-dee, here's some money, go buy yourself some ice cream. And then we worked hard. I made beds. My friend waited on table there at the hotel, because I just couldn't wait on table. So I made beds and did these sorts of things. But one time I broke a mirror, so I had to go and apologize. Another time she told us we weren't to have any lights, any good lamps up in our bedroom. All we had was candles. So one day I was getting ready for a dance, and I swiped the lamp and took it up. And I thought I heard her call me when I grabbed this lamp, and I stepped out in the dark over the stairs, and down I went the whole length of the stairs, bumped my chin till it was so swollen. It's a good thing I didn't break nothing. And she came flying upstairs to Mrs. Jowett, and she said to me, what was that noise? I said, oh, I just slammed the door. I put the lamp in the other bedroom, and one she rented, and picked up the chimney, didn't break or anything. And so this was it. Went to the dance and had a good time with a big chin and all. Then I worked for her from May until September of the year 1920.
Go ahead.
Then in September she didn't want me anymore, so I didn't have no place to go. I'd paid her back what I owed her because she'd sent me a ticket. And so she didn't want me anymore. So I wondered what I would do. Well, Mr. Madden, who had the Madden house, they weren't very good friends. But anyway, he brought his wife home, who was dying of cancer, from the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. And I went and took care of her and the 3 children, and she died 5 months later. And I promised her I would stay in Trout Lake with the children until the end of June 1921, and then take the little girl down to Nelson to her sisters. And they ran a Madden house down there. So I stayed then with the children until then. In the meantime, I had walked the ice in Trout Lake to Girard, 18 miles down one day and back the next. Had a very badly sunburned face and 2 eyes badly swollen from sunburns, but I walked it.
Why did you walk it?
Oh, just for the sake of doing something, and there was a road on the ice that the men had been back and forth with horses, you see, and they had a road. So this young Madden boy, Robin, 14 years old, and I walked it down, but within 2 miles of Girard we had to hit the beach because the ice was going. It was in March. And then, coming back the next day, we stayed at Mrs. Brandon's at Girard, the hotel there. And then coming back the next day, we had to walk the beach, and we went into Mr. Madden's lumber camp, and he wouldn't let us come up alone, so he sent George Gray with us with a big sled and a long pole for fear we had to jump big cracks coming back. We finally got back, and everybody in Trout Lake was down to meet us on the shore. They were so worried, and they were so mad they were going to beat me up anyway. But they were very kind. But they were just so worried, especially Mr. Craig. He was worried, because I had wanted Jeannie to go with me, and he wouldn't let her. And so this was it. But anyway, then I went from there, that year of 21, I went to Nelson with the little girl and took her down to her aunt's. And then by this time my friend Beulah Bell had left Mrs. Jowett's and gone to Kaslo to work in a hotel.
Okay, before we go on, could you describe Trout Lake the way it was when you first got there in 1920? What was there?
There was 2 hotels still running a bit, and that one was Mrs. Jowett and the Maddens. And there was there were a lot of homes, and Ferguson was on the go because Mr. Daney, that was be Mrs. Jowett's son-in-law. He and Alice, his daughter, was one of our best friends. In fact, I just wrote to her again last week. She lives in Seattle. And that Trout Lake was really going down, but it had a lot of people living there. There was a school. There was a school in then, too. And there was there was a church. A minister used to come in once in a while for church. But it was really going down. It went right flat in no time afterwards.
How far is Ferguson from Trout Lake?
6 miles.
In what direction?
Up the, let me see.
East, would it be?
No, it would be sort of north of Trout Lake.
North of Trout Lake.
Because you had to go up, I think it's 6 miles to Ferguson. Could be maybe 5.
Was Ferguson very big at this time?
Well, Ferguson had one time been quite a town in itself, but it was dying down too. Mining was closing down. There was no mines practically at all going. There was a few, but there were lumber mills, several lumber mills. And there's some beautiful homes in Trout Lake and in Ferguson too. Of course, there's nothing now, very much of anything, especially in Ferguson. Everything is gone. The Daneys, Mrs. Jowett's daughter, Mrs. Daney lives with her daughter down in Seattle. And now there's nothing, everything is new now in Trout Lake. New homes, and another thing is that it's a summer resort now. And of course with the road, where you can drive down around to Girard, and you can drive now any place. I was down a few years ago with Mrs. Mallet. She came and took me down. We went around down to New Denver and up around to Kaslo and back around to
Mrs. Mallet, the health nurse?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Kate.
Mm-hmm.
She took me down with her one day. She was off duty, so we went for a drive. But Trout Lake, there was nothing for me to do when I was there, so I decided that I would probably go back east again and still go in training.
This is in 1921.
Yeah, this was in 1921. And then I went to Nelson's, I say, and I phoned my friend in Kaslo, Beulah Bell had gone to Kaslo then, and I said, I'm going back east and go in training. So she phoned me back in a little while, and she said they want somebody to help at the hospital in Kaslo. So I went to Kaslo to work, and I was a nurse's aide there for 2.5 years, until 1923, fall of 1923. Then I was there for until 23. Then our Dr. Reed was drowned, and Dr. Barkley from Revelstoke came down to Kaslo to take his place. And one day he said to me, Hazel, why don't you still go in training? I said, oh, doctor, I'm getting too old now. He said, oh, you can go to Revelstoke, they'll take you in. Because at that time, they wouldn't take nurses as old as I was at that time. So I took 7 years off of my age and said I was 20 when I applied. I was accepted. Then I went back east for 3 months and came back in March 1924, the 7th of March 1924, and I went in training here. So I trained here, put in they said they would take a year off of me, but they couldn't, because they had girls here that had been put out of other hospitals, and they had to put in their 3 years, so I didn't mind putting in 3 years. There was Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Jones, and Dr. Strong here then.
What was the hospital like?
It was really nice. We had a real nice hospital, and I miss it so much. It was, the nurses' home was connected with it. And finally, they built an isolation hospital during my time there, too, a little one. And, but I enjoyed being here, and I really studied because I was older than so I had to study. It's been a long time since I've been in high school. So then I had to really study. But Revelstoke at that time, oh, it was, well, I just loved it. I don't know, of course it has changed so much, even with the Arlington Court burning down.
Right.
And, but it was really, really nice. It hadn't changed very much until 1931 or 32, after we were married.
Can you describe Revelstoke in 1924? What was it like? What was here?
I wouldn't know because I didn't stayed overnight.
No, when you were in training.
Oh, when I was in training.
Right.
Oh, well, yes, it was really nice. You could hike all over the place. There wasn't very many cars around. And the first Ford, I think, was Dr. Strong's Ford, I think. And he went in the wintertime, and he had skis put on it so that he could come. I think it was Armstrong's car that had the skis put on it. I don't think it was Dr. Jones.
How would they put skis on a car?
He put skis on his old Ford, on the front wheels. They had skis. They're about so wide.
About 7 or 8 inches, huh?
Yes. And that's how they got around. He was the first one to have skis on his car here. And that was in 1924 or 25, the winter of 25. Yes, he did.
What were your courses like when you were in training? What courses did you take?
We took everything that nurses take. Still have my books, and I'm looking at them today down in my old trunk, the ones we took, because we took everything. We took surgery, of course. And people said to me when I went back east, this was later, when I went back east and night supervised in the Children's Hospital in Halifax, where did you learn all this? In a small hospital? We had a wonderful superintendent. She was really marvelous, Miss Wells. It wasn't do as I do, it was do as I say. And Miss Wells was from Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. And this is where we learned so many things. Our nurses had big jobs at that time, wherever they went. Even we had a supervisor from Calgary. Miss Tui was our supervisor, and she was from Calgary. And Miss Nelson was our day supervisor, and she had trained here. But she was very, very good. And we had all this training here, and it was really, then when I went, of course, and had more experience by going to Rossland to work after I graduated.
Well, can we stay with the training for just a little bit while longer?
Yeah.
Did you get paid while you were training?
Paid? We got $8 a month the first year, $9 the second year, and $10 the third year. That was a lot of money. That's the money.
Oh my God.
So you could, but the stores here are very good. They would let us buy things on time, and you could pay so much a month, $2 or $3 a month. So I bought shoes from Kenny McRae. They were about $15 a pair, and took a long time to pay for them, because I paid him about $3 a month. And then I bought a dress at Mrs. Rogers, and it was $30, and I paid for it. I was really thought I was being smart. But Revelstoke was really a wonderful place at that time. In fact, it was more friendly, I think, than now. And the people were so nice. Of course, they did have the red light district down in Lower Town, but these girls, sometimes they come in for patients. They said, and somebody be a bit nasty to them, but I never was. They said, don't you be nasty to us, because we keep you safe on the streets, which was quite true. And some of them were very nice, just the same, very nice patients. And we never were scared to go out at night. You could go out at night and midnight and round. Because while we were in training, you had to be in at 10 o'clock, or else 10 o'clock was the latest. And we had a night supervisor one time, and for some reason or other, she took a dislike to me. Miss Tui left. She was our night supervisor before that, and she left and gone back and got married. And this one, I don't remember her name, but however, she said to me one night, I was just across the street from the old hospital, and over at Mrs. Cowan's, and I said, I got to run because I'll be late getting in. Well, I got over to the hospital, and the door was locked. Well, of course, I had to ring to get in. And so she came down and let me in. So I thought that was kind of strange that the clock said 10 minutes after 10. Well, I thought it didn't take me 10 minutes to cross the street. So I went the next morning, being sneaky, into the superintendent's office, and on the file was where I was 10 minutes late getting in. So I thought, well, now I'll apologize as soon as Miss Wells came down. And so when she came down, that was toward my end of training. When she came down, I went to her office, and I said to her, I'm sorry. I know I wasn't late getting in. I said, I was in at 10 minutes to 10, not 10 minutes after 10. And so she just picked it up, squashed it up in her hands, and put it in the wastepaper basket. So anyway, this girl was very disappointed that I wasn't punished for being late getting in. But Miss Wells knew that I wasn't, because that was the first time in 3 years that I had been late. At least I had been put down as being late. But Revelstoke was really wonderful then, though, in lots of ways.
Can you describe a typical day in your training? What time did you get up and what did you do during the day?
Well, we had to be on duty at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you had to get up at 6. Get yourself on duty at 7, uniform and all. And then you had to go, of course, and wash your patients and get them ready to have breakfast. Then the trays would come up on the old elevator, and we'd serve them their trays and feed those that couldn't eat. Then after the trays were taken away, after the breakfast, we had to bath them, either bed baths or tub baths, every one, and look after them, and take their temperatures, pulse, make out their charts, see how well they'd slept and all this. And so this is what we had to do, and it went on all day long. We got 2 hours off during the day to rest. Sometimes it would be 2 hours in the morning, sometimes it would be 2 hours in the afternoon. She'd divide them up. You see, there was always a schedule when you would be off for your 2 hours. Otherwise, we worked very straight through. Well, we had 2 hours off, but it was 7 to 7. There was no 8-hour day. This was 12 hours with 2 hours off. If you're lucky to get your work done, so you get off for 2 hours.
When did you take your studies then?
You studied when you could. You studied. You didn't have any time off for studying.
So there wasn't any classes or anything like that?
Yes, we had classes, but we'd probably have a class in an afternoon, or maybe about 3/4 of an hour or an hour, or we'd have one in the morning. But the superintendent was always there, or the day supervisor. And sometimes we had a doctor to speak to us, but we had to study these things ourselves. And when we wrote our examinations, well, we had to write, period, and you had to know. You know, I had to write my RN in Nelson because I graduated before the RNs came out, and I had a job in Rossland through a friend who went down, and sister said to him in Rossland, "Do you know where I could get a nurse?" And he said, "Yes, you can get Hazel." It was a priest, Father A.L. McIntyre. I wasn't Catholic, but he was always so nice to me on account of the Maddens. I met him at the Maddens because they were Catholics. And so I went there, and then she let me off. They let me off for a week, and I went over to Nelson and stayed at the hotel and walked up to the hospital and wrote my RN every day for 5 days. But we did this, and that would be that would be the spring of 1924. No, 27.
Right.
Yeah, 27.
When you were in the hospital in Revelstoke, what seemed to be the major medical problems?
There wasn't any. We didn't have no problems.
What were people in for?
Oh, everything. We had surgery. It doesn't matter what kind of surgery it was. We had a good surgeon. That was Dr. Jones. Yeah, they had a real good surgeon. And we had surgery. In fact, some people would say, "Well, where'd you learn all this in surgery?" You see, so. But we had surgery, and we had all kinds of other care, and then we had, they built a little hospital, an isolation hospital for scarlet fever patients and all kinds of smallpox and things like this. We had even that training too with the children. And we had everything here. It didn't matter. We had everything. And tonsils, and of course there wasn't the eye operations and things like that they do today. Because if you had an eye operation, you would go to Vancouver for it. or sometimes at Kamloops, but usually Vancouver. But they did their operations here. They amputate legs, or they do all sorts of things. It was very, very good, really. And then when I was in Rossland, I was only there about, I don't know how long I was there, I forget. But I went to Trail, and I worked in the hospital there. That was supposed to be their big new hospital. It was at that time, but since then they got away with it and built another one out across the river. But I went there, and then I worked on the staff, and then their operating room nurse left, and I took on the operating room nursing affair, 24-hour call for a year. And when the year was up, when you get called anytime, 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning, and you'd have to work right straight through, sometimes the superintendent would be kind and let you off for an extra hour or 2 or something, but you had to work right straight through. So I had that 24-hour call for a year. But then I was a bit tired, and they had a case then that they were sending to Toronto. So I applied to see if I could take the case to Toronto, which they let me do. And the man had lung cancer, but he died in Toronto. Then I stayed there 2 weeks, and then I went down to my hometown in New Brunswick.
Okay, there were a couple more things I wanted to ask you, though, about the time you were in Revelstoke between 1923 and 1927. Were there any epidemics at that time?
Well, we had scarlet fever, smallpox. That's about all I think there was.
Were there any big accidents during the time you were there?
I don't remember about the train accidents or anything. I don't think there was any big accidents. There were small accidents in the mill, but I couldn't tell you a big accident. Not like the one at Trail where the man was blown practically to pieces and they could operate without giving him an anesthetic. Then he had a 4-hour operation and he died 4 hours later. They had to take off both legs, fix his arms, put his eye back in. Oh, that was a dreadful thing. Then he died.
What about maternity?
Oh, we had lots of maternity here. Yeah, that was, we had really good maternity. Dr. Hamilton, more or less, had most of the maternity cases. And women would come in, and that's the time they kept them in bed. You never let them turn over by themselves, and you... and for, I think, the 8th or 9th day, you could sit up in bed, and then about 10th or 12th day, you could get up and sit in a chair, and then they went home. They didn't, but we never lost any cases of blood clots, but a lot of hospitals did. So that's why they let the mothers get up as soon as the baby is born anymore, because they had so many cases where mothers had died of blood clots. But we had a lot of maternity cases. Oh, goodness sake, we had babies galore. Yeah.
Okay. You want to just continue on then? You were talking about your 24-hour duty, and what did you do after that?
24-hour duty after I did that, took that patient back to Toronto, and then I went on down to my hometown, Bristol, New Brunswick. Mother was living then, and I went down. Then I went on down to Halifax and night supervised in the Children's Hospital there for about 9 months, 9 or 10 months. Yeah, about 10 months that I was there in Halifax. Then I left because I was homesick for the mountains, came back to BC. I was going to go down to Trail to see my other boyfriend that I'd left down there and promised to come back. I met my husband, Doug McIntosh, and we were married 3 months later. And I met him at a Christmas dance in Beaton in 1930, and we were married in March 31, so I didn't know him very long. But we were married at my friend's, Beulah Bell, who had married Archioke, and they lived over at Comaplex. So we had to row across the river, and we were married there. A minister came down. Dunk came out and got the license out here, and the minister, well, what minister was it? Oh, it's funny to forget. But anyway, he came down to Beaton and he married us there. Well, Dunk had bought a home in Beaton, and we didn't want anybody in Beaton to know about it because we both didn't have very much money. So we didn't want them to know about it. But the next morning, so we went across. Archioke had rowed us across the river to the meadow, and we hiked the meadow about 2 miles and went over home and stayed over there that night. And when I looked out the window, there's somebody who saw us, and they ran over to Mrs. Evans, and they said, "I think Hazel and Dunk must be married because she's over there." Well, that night, you should have seen the party they gave us. Talk about gifts. There was everything. And they serenaded us no end.
What was Comaplex like in 1931? What was there?
Nothing. There was just the Okies was there, and he was logging. And it had gone down too at one time. It was quite a town, but it had gone down. But I didn't know it as a town. That's why when I say I look over there, it reminds me of Comaplex. And I look out that window sometimes.
I mean, when you look over the Columbia.
Yeah, the Columbia. But, oh yes, it was really a beautiful spot. And this Archioke, he got a big kick out of us getting married. Then Beulah had got a big dinner ready, and the minister stayed for dinner. Oh, let me think of his name. Balderston. Reverend Balderston. He was a minister up here, and finally one of his daughters was a school teacher, and she boarded the last later years. And then she was killed at Chase. She was riding a bicycle and ran into a car and was killed. After she was in Beaton about 2 years teaching, but she boarded with us shortly after we were married.
What was Beaton like in 1931?
Oh, it was quite a little town, and they had their hall, they used to have dances, and the Lindsay boys, who were up here, and nobody had any use for them, but they used to play, and we had a lot of people that worked at the mine in Camborne that used to come down, and they'd be maybe 25, 30 couples, besides the young people was there. And they had their own band. It didn't cost us anything. Everybody bought eats. You had so much to eat. And it was really a jolly time. We had real good times.
Stores and things there at that time?
No, there were no stores. The only one store was, it was sort of it had gone downhill. And it was, I forget the man's name. Had it, and they had a boarding place there too where you could stay all night. It was like a hotel, and I forget his name. But anyway, they had a little store there. Then finally, after that, Calder Souls had a store there. He lives up here now, but he had a store there. And then after Calder went out of business, Mr. Metzler, who married Mrs. Lindsay, she was a widow, he had a store. But we mostly done all our big trading at Arrowhead at Dan Crawford's. You could send out an order and he'd send it in on the ferry, and you had to meet the ferry and get your own groceries and things like that. We did that too. Oh, it was quite the deal. And then Mr. Daney, he used to drive the mail. He'd bring the mail down in the morning, and it would go, that is from Trout Lake, it would go out and get on the train, and then he used to wait. Roberts was the store I was trying to think about. He's the one that had the place where you could stay overnight, several bedrooms where you could stay overnight, have and get a meal. I never did stay there, but I know it was Roberts. And we used to deal a little bit with him, but not too often.
What about the logging?
Oh, the logging
Can you tell
was
me?
tremendous, because we did a lot of logging. My husband did, because we just had no other way to earn the money. Then he spent this money keeping up the mining property, the old Red Star property, and which I've let go now. But I did get a few dollars out of it, and now it's gone downhill.
Were there several mills in Beaton? I mean, what did you just cut the lumber, or did you mill
No,
it?
there was a mill in Beaton, and I don't know who owned it for a long time. I'm sure. I forget now who owned it. All those things that come back to you sometime, but I forget them. No. Anyway, it was really, really marvelous in there, and we used to have such good times at their dances, and then they pulled a fast one on us on our 25th wedding anniversary. We had a lot of gifts. Nobody, we didn't know about it. And I said to my friend, Mrs. Oakey and Mr. Oakey, this is our 25th today. And Beulah just said, oh yes, come on down for dinner tonight with us. So we did. We went down to dinner with them, and Archie drove us home in the car. And then I said to Doug, he wasn't very well then, I said to him, let's go down to the dance just for an hour, and we'll have one dance and have a coffee and come home. Well, we went down. Well, you should have seen them when they were serving their coffee at midnight and the tea. They set up a big table with a big white cloth on it, and that's the cake up there they had on this big cake. And I bet there was at least 20 or 25 parcels for us that the lady at the post office had been holding them over. Different people, and then the cards. And of course the mine was running, and the mine gave us money. My husband wouldn't take it because he was Scotsman, but I was more Scotch than him. He wouldn't take the money, but they gave around well over $100 in money for me. But see, I had worked for them as a nurse's aide, and I worked at the North Okanagan Health Unit too for a while. In fact, the other day when I was looking through some stuff down in my old trunk, I came across different things and that I forgot that I'd had from different doctors from the Okanagan. I worked at the North Okanagan Health Unit for quite a number of years.
What did you do for them?
I don't know if I'd done anything for them, but I worked with them. But I delivered a lot of babies down in Beaton, and took care of sick people, and operated with a razor blade once in a while when you had to. Or I'd get them, if they got too sick, then I'd bring them to Revelstoke. And but we didn't have the ferry always at hand, you see. We'd have to wait till the ferry come in, and then take the ferry out, which is quite expensive at that time. And then have a car or bus or something to take up the Revelstoke.
You mean it wasn't a free ferry?
Oh, land, no, not at that time. Now it is. Oh, no, not at that time. I forget what they charged us return, $2 return or something. That is for one person. Well, it was 10 miles. Now they've taken it off. We always have been laughing about it. They've taken it off since we bought the ferry. We all paid so much to get in and out. No, if you took a patient out, it was quite a deal for I think it was $10 or something for a private ferry to come out to take you out if I had to bring a patient out. But I used to bring them out here, and it's just like 3 boys that visit me I was telling you about, and they say, Auntie Mac, don't you know us? Here, I delivered them. One was 20 and one 19, the other 18.
Right.
Also their baby sister.
Can you tell me more about the mining in the area? You know, how many mines were there going?
Well, it was the Sunshine Lardo. That was the biggest mine. Sunshine Lardo was. But there was other smaller ones that I didn't know very much about, except our own small one that there was. We had a man or two in the summertime, but that's all. And I used to get very mad about it, because we worked hard and had lumbering and then put it in mining. But I got a little bit out of it after my husband died, but not very much.
What was the Sunshine Lardo mining for?
Silver, lead, and zinc, and they had they had quite a bit of gold, too, that they were mining for that. Silver, lead, and zinc.
How big of a mine was it?
Well, there was a mill there, and the mill had been there for 20 years before I even knew the country, or even for more than that, likely. And they milled the property, and they sent their, what do you call it, this ground up stuff anyway, they sent it to Trail. All this stuff went to Trail to be milled, you see, too. After they grind it up there, they send all that ground stuff to Trail to have the silver and lead and zinc taken out of it, you know, it all went to Trail then.
How much do you suppose came out of there? Do you have any idea?
I haven't any idea at all.
Was the Sunshine Lardo right in Beaton?
No, the Sunshine Lardo was up at Camborne. That's 6 miles from Beaton. It was on the level. It was on, what would they call that creek there? Funny that you forget all those things now. I've been away for 11 years now. Yes, oh yes, that was quite the mine up there that time. That ran about 4 years, 5 years.
How many people were there, do you suppose?
Oh, there was at least, there wasn't too many, 150 or 200, that's about all.
This was at Camborne then?
Yeah, that was at Camborne.
Did they have a town site there too, or?
Well, at one time there was a town site, but you see, these things had all died down. They were before my time in there. They were when my husband came out when he was only 18 years old or something, and they worked up in there then too, and between there and Cranbrook. But no, he didn't. I don't know anything about it before 1920, and I didn't know very much about it then because I was just a year in Trout Lake, you see. And I went to Kaslo, and I was 3.5 years down there. Not quite that long, but 2 years and a half.
You said you were nurse's aide for
2 years in Kaslo, in the hospital.
But I mean for one of the mines.
No, I wasn't a nurse's aide for them.
Or a mill?
No, I wasn't.
In Beaton.
Well,
I must have misunderstood. I thought you said you were a nurse's aide.
No, I worked with the North Okanagan Health Unit after I was an RN. You see, I wasn't married till after I had gone in training and I graduated. Then I went back, I worked in Rossland and Trail, and there's where I went to, I took the operating room for a year. But I'd worked there about 1.5 years altogether. Then I went back east.
Right. And then you came back to Beaton.
Then I came back to Beaton. That's when I met my husband. I was on my way down the trail to go to work again because there was a boyfriend there.
Right.
And he was older than me too. My husband was 12 years older than me. Then in 1943, my mother died back in New Brunswick, and Dad came out in 1944, and he was with us 19 years. My husband died first.
Were you the only nurse in the area?
Yes, I was the only nurse down in that area, and that's why I got to delivering babies and working, and sometimes knock on your door in the middle of the night, and I'd be so tired, and I'd go, and I used to say to my husband, "Why don't you say I can't go?" He said, "What would be the use? You go anyway." I'd be so tired. I'd probably go out and be with somebody who was terribly ill and stay with them. And I'd even go up to Trout Lake, which is 14 miles by horse and buggy. Way up there, they'd come down for me and I'd go up.
What would bring you out to Trout Lake?
Oh,
Anything
people
you
would be
remember?
sick. They didn't have babies, but people that were sick, the older men too, the bachelors that would be very sick. Probably somebody would have a stroke or something like that. And, they'd be very sick. And sometimes I'd have to get them on the bed and get them out here to the hospital. Sometimes, though, they couldn't do very much with them, and they'd die there. I know several did. Several of the men died. Then the several we found dead in bed. Had to take them out. And Mrs. Goldsmith, I wanted her to come out of the hospital, but no way would she come. So she died at home. She was from Australia. I'm a school teacher at one time. And Mrs. Gunterman, Mattie, who was a very dear friend, her husband died. And then a few years later she died on Beaton too. We found her dead in bed.
How long did you stay in Beaton?
We lived there. Well, Duncan and I were married 28 years, so 28 years in Beaton.
From 1959 about?
Yes, 1959 when Dunk died. And then I went to, my dad got sick and I had taken Shaughnessy, so then I went to Vancouver to work. And I worked in Vancouver then until he died in 63. And then I had taken his body back east for burial beside Mother. He left the money for me to do it with, so I did. And I stayed back there about 3 months, and I got homesick and come home again. Went down to Beaton. And then I went back to Vancouver and went to work.
How long were you in Beaton at that time?
Not very long, just about 2 months, that's all. Then I went back to Vancouver and went to work. And I got an allergy so bad, the doctor said it was nerves. And it was. I didn't think it was, but it was. I had a dreadful allergy. And it was nerves, so I had to give up. I gave up nursing in 65. Yeah, but in the meantime, before that, in 64, I went on a trip to Europe. And I was in England, Scotland. I went over on a boat with some in-laws, some friends from South Africa. At least they were my dad's people, his brother's family. And I met them, the girl in Vancouver, and then we went back to meet her brother in Chicago. And we took the boat from Montreal and went over to England. 8 days on the boat, I was disgusted. But when we went to Europe, I went with them. They were going on their way to back to South Africa where they lived in Johannesburg.
When you first came to the area in 1920, were the steamships running?
Yes, the steamships were running. Oh yes, there was the Minto, and yes, when you went to Nelson or anything, you had to go by steamship. Otherwise, there was no roads anyway. Sternwheelers, and we went down to. You had to go to Arrowhead on the train. Then you took the sternwheeler there and went down to Nelson. It was an all-day trip because you had to get down there early in the morning. It was an all-day trip. And then in some places you were going, like if I was going to Rossland, I had to take the train then. After Rossland, and at that time it used to back up. It was so high it couldn't climb, so it had to back up. That's when I went down there once. But yes, there was. I went down that way to Rossland, or to. That was my first trip to Rossland.
What was it like on these
sternwheelers? They were very good. It was an overnight trip, I think, to Nelson. I think it was. I can't remember now, but anyway, I remember sleeping in a berth going down there. So it must have been. Must have got a later boat or something. But there was a sternwheelers, yes. I've been on the sternwheelers many times. And so, oh yes, there was sternwheelers. We couldn't have got along without them, but there was no roads at that time. The roads has only been just in later years. That's all.
When did you get back to Revelstoke then?
The last time I come back to Revelstoke?
When did you come back to stay?
When I come back to stay? 65. 11 years ago. When would that be?
66.
66. Well, I was up at Mrs. Cook's, where I lived up there for nearly 11 years, and I came here last August. And when I left Beaton, I went up there, because I had to sell out to BC Hydro, and I got this apartment at Mrs. Cook's, and was up there until last August, when I moved in here on the 14th, but I wasn't allowed to live here until the 30th, because it wasn't open for residents, you see. But they let me bring my stuff in, and I had to bring it in. Oh, Toby Belinsky brought it in. He had to back up and bring it in back because they didn't want anybody to see me having it put in here. Otherwise, I'd had to move it twice, you see, because Mrs. Cook wanted my apartment there. But however, she only let that school teacher stay a few months, and she had asked him to leave.
What keeps you in Revelstoke?
Oh, just because kind friends, and I think my husband's buried here. He's buried out in the graveyard too, and I don't want to go. But I think maybe next year I might go back east again. But I've been back east at least 3 times since he died, back to see my sisters, and my 4 brothers are gone now. But my younger brother and his wife was out here to visit me. And then he died last March, the 19th, last March, and so I haven't any brothers left. I have a sister back east, and then I have this sister in Salmon, where I'm going on Saturday over to her place for 2-3 days. I'm not staying long. And then after that, I'm going down to Montana to a wedding, and the McIntoshes down there. That's my husband's nephew and his wife. They have a 1,400-acre wheat farm, and everything on it from peacocks up.
Peacocks?
Oh, remember my peacock feathers?
Right.
Yeah, I got lots of peacock feathers over there, off of them. So that's where I'm going on March, or April the 2nd. But I'll go down on March the 20th or the 24th, and I think they'll meet me at Great Falls.
Well-traveled lady?
Yeah, I've been traveling around a bit.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything that I've missed?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking about it today, but then I was thinking of something funny and I can't think of it now. So let's have some coffee.
Okay.
Okay?